all and call to order the Town of Akron Planning Commission meeting for February the 25th. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Grinling?
I am.
Commissioner Tonelli?
Present.
Commissioner Whitmer? Here. Chair Lively?
Here,
Commissioner Lane?
Yes, here.
we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Anyone in the audience?
Can everyone hear us?
Oh, there's no mic.
Well, yeah, so I guess at the city council meeting, they replaced the regular microphones. This feels a little
With a fix-all.
strange with these little flat microphones, and
It's okay.
I heard it went well. I wasn't at the meeting. So if anyone can't hear us, raise your hand.
Sorry, Commissioner.
So that's for the recording and this is for the room, right?
It's supposed to be for both.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
So,
All right,
know
good.
that it's projected.
It's a fits-all.
Yeah,
All right, good.
let's see.
Okay, public comments. Anyone in the audience would like to comment on anything that's not on our agenda for the evening? There being none. The next item is approval of minutes of our last meeting. Any comments or adjustments or changes to our minutes?
I'll move the approval of the minutes as presented.
Second.
Second.
Mary Beth second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved.
Abstain.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is public hearings, and the first one is 147 Patricia. Staff report, please.
Thank you. As the commission recalls, this item was heard at your January 28th meeting, and at that meeting, you considered the applicant's request for a special structure permit for a basement under the main residence, and that was approved. Their request for a heritage tree removal permit was denied, and then you continue the request for the special structure permit for the pool. So with retaining that heritage redwood tree, the applicant went back and redesigned the site layout. They're able to preserve that tree, move the pool a bit closer to the house as well as closer to the street, and then now design the accessory structure of the pool house in more of an L configuration. So the town arborist and myself did a site inspection and took a look at it, and it's the town arborist's opinion that it would be sufficient distance from the tree to save the tree, but we do have an added condition in to make sure that does occur. And then just to clarify now, the pool would be 13 foot 8 inches from the main residence and approximately 67 feet 5 inches from the front property line. And the minimum required would be 60 feet from the front property line, excuse me, 50, because it's a smaller lot. So staff is supportive of the special structure permit request for the pool. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions? If not, open the public hearing. Is the applicant here or desire to be heard in this matter?
Good evening. My name is David Bogstead with LCA Architects. After our last meeting, we worked very hard, little communication things and making sure that everything works now. Planner, arborist, meeting on site, looking at the tree. And then since we have the tree and there's an existing pool in that area, we made an L shape out of the pool house right where the existing footprint is, and then celebrated the tree. So in the sense, and then planting all the other trees we're going to plant around that. So that goes into the item of tonight is the pool pushing into that front setback is in the sense we're really screening the whole property with trees. So I think in that regard, that's the only thing I'm asking about for the pool. The hearts are swimmers, big swimmers, and so the 25-meter pool is important. As I'm a swimmer also, maybe that's why I got the job. But anyways, that's the thing for the night. I think we've worked well with your city staff and arborists and my arborist to try to make this all work. And just a little footnote as I was preparing tonight, I've been doing this over a little over 30 years. And every time I built a building around a tree, including my own house, I've never lost a tree. So that's just my little footnote there tonight.
Great record.
Questions?
Any comments and questions of the applicant? Anyone?
I do have a question. The layout shows the pool equipment close to the property line, not exceeding I don't mean to say it's exceeding it, but is it going to have any sound damage?
Yes, I will do that with a heavy wood fence with variegated, and I've worked with my acoustical engineer to make that so that is quiet.
Okay, that's great. And I really want to tell you that I appreciate you saving that tree. And
Yeah, no.
You did
Little
a great
mystery.
job with the redesign.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any comments?
No, staff.
Again, our thanks very much. You worked very diligently to make this happen.
Thank you, thank
Very
you so
good
much.
result. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really good result. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just really exciting the way the process kind of benefited the tree and the plan. And as David said, instead of losing the tree, kind of celebrated the tree, made it the focal point. I spoke to David on the phone earlier today and he even made the comment that he thinks they even came up with a better plan after reviewing it. And I just am really excited to see the whole process come together. I want to thank David and the Harts for their cooperation and their patience with what we're going through.
We should close the public hearing, and now that we're having commissioner comments all the way around, William, any comment?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we adopt,
Is there a second?
approve, sorry.
I move the celebration of the special permit process, yes.
Second.
Shall I formally read it?
Go ahead. Read my
Yeah.
move for the
I
record.
move that the planning commission approve the special structure permit for the location of accessory structure at 147 Patricia Lane, subject to the conditions of the special permit, structure permit certificate, and based on the findings and reasons incorporated in the staff report.
I second the celebration.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. It is approved.
That was a good process.
Very good. Next item on our agenda is 30 Bellbrook, a request to allow an accessory structure to be located in the front yard setback. Staff report, please.
Thank you. The subject site is a flag lot, and it's approximately 1.43 acres in area. The applicant had previously designed and planned to have the pool at the rear of the residence, but given some of the soil conditions they encountered during the course of construction, they would like to relocate the pool to the front of the property. So they're requesting a special structure permit to build the pool up to the front property line, and that front yard setback. The required front yard setback for this property would be 60 feet, and the applicant's proposing to build the pool 70 feet from the front property line, who would be about 42 feet from the side property line. And the pool would meet all other accessory structure setback requirements. Sally Benz, town arborist, reviewed the plans, conducted a site inspection, and she noted that the proposed pool location will not interfere with any heritage trees. There's an existing tall wall that will help screen the pool from neighboring properties, and the applicant also proposes to install some additional landscape screening to screen the pool. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Yeah, I visited the site on Tuesday, and I wonder how many of the trees that are along that lower edge will remain in place. Do we know how that's gonna work out? Because they're not sizable enough to be heritage trees.
Can I answer that?
Yep.
I'm Scott Lewis, I'm a landscape architect, and all the ones at that south side, they're all staying.
All of them?
All of them.
Regardless of size?
Yeah, there's some oaks near the driveway as you drive in, and then there's a bunch of redwoods,
Exactly.
and then it goes over to some more oaks, so those are all gonna stay.
Okay, thank you.
And then we're adding some more trees behind.
Okay, that answers that question. Any further questions from staff? Anyone?
For staff, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I have some staff questions too.
Go ahead.
I have some for the.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely use that. There was no soil, so this, when I went to this property, I was probably I felt the least comfortable about the overall positioning and everything of this property of any I've seen on this planning commission. So I need to understand something about the soils approach on that kind of an incline overall, and why we would discover after the fact that it was not gonna be acceptable to put a pool in the back. Was there any soils analysis?
I'd have to ask the applicant, but
Okay.
since planning doesn't review the soils reports, I'm not sure what the process was on this project. So
Okay.
I have to defer to the applicant.
All right, I'll wait until this applicant comes back then, because I'm honestly have some big questions about the layout on this.
Okay.
Any further questions of staff? If not, we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here would like to be heard?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Louis Butler. I'm the architect for 30 Bellbrook. I'm here tonight with Scott Lewis, who's the landscape architect, Jane Lang, who's representing the owner, and Hira Bassi, who's the project architect. Let me go straight to the question you just asked, because that's one of 2 or 3 related things that are causing us to want to move the pool. There is a ridge of rock that runs through this property that was none of the soil borings that were done originally actually hit that ridge.
Okay.
So when we started to dig the pool, we did hit that ridge, and it's significant, and it's hard, and it's, you know, significant cost, commotion, frankly, disruption to the neighborhood to go through that. The other related factors, which are actually important in their own right, is there are existing eucalyptus trees, not that attractive and not that healthy, that are on the neighbor's property line. That neighbor is uncooperative about trimming those trees, and I believe has been cited by the town for that same item. Unfortunately, combined with that, we can't underground the power line. So we have dead trees, an above-ground power line, a rock, and a proposed pool location. And frankly, those three combinations with a pool are just not, none of them are good. And so that caused us to look at the lower location. It really was frankly out of necessity, not out of some kind of design idea. And so then that takes us to the lower part of the site, which is something we looked at early on. So we were prepared to adjust quickly to that. And again, I think staff has covered that part of the report, and if you'd like to hear more from the landscape architect about proposed screening, he is available for that too. But I want to make sure I'm addressing the issues that the commissioners have.
Okay, well, I'll wait until you were ready for your questions, or do you want me to jump in?
Go ahead.
So what, I know the original plan, or one of the plans along the ways had a different size pool, is that correct? And then it was expanded when you put it back in the front. What was the thinking on?
Here, do you have the history of that, or Jane?
Yeah, let me put the drawings up there. So the current pool size is about 20 feet by 52.6, and the pool size that we originally had,
It was more of a loft pool, size pool, right?
it was still fairly wide. Just a second. Well, no, it's also about 20 feet. I think the difference is that it wasn't as
It
long.
wasn't as
It
wide.
was shorter.
It was-
Yeah.
It was
The width was about the same, but
Okay.
it was just shorter.
Okay, all right, and what caused the size change? When you came back, why didn't you use that original plan?
I think, well, we were partially looking at how it connects to the basement level below. I don't think that the square footage of the pool, I mean, Scott, I don't think that the square footage of the pool changed that significantly.
Okay. all
So
right.
your question is, why didn't we just move the same footprint down? Is that what you're?
Well, I was looking at it from the standpoint of the overall impact of the area. It's an elevated level, sort of looking over to the neighbors, and it was a downhill slope, and there were a number of things there that were just like, didn't seem like the best from a noise perspective, and from a sort of viewing perspective, and from from the way I would have used that site if I would have done it in the beginning. It seemed like it was just reversed from anything I would have done as a designer. So I was trying to figure out what caused the size of the pool to change when it came back. Since there was a plan in place for one size pool there, then was there anything that happened that caused the size to grow?
So I think the design, I think that deserves the design explanation, which is that when we had the pool up above, we really wanted to maintain a flat, grassy play area
Right.
and a pool, so we moved it into that corner. We did not want the pool occupying the center of that courtyard.
Right.
That was really, its primary objective was to have outdoor recreation space.
Right.
So we hit the rock ridge and the eucalyptus trees plus power line. We went back down to the lower part of the site. And then the design of the pool is influenced by the fact that it relates to that large room inside the house. So there's a progression of spaces that then determine the exact dimension of that pool. That's why we simply
I got it.
we didn't reproduce the same footprint. It was not a one-size-all situation. It was then tuned to the lower floor plan of that house.
All right.
And I hope that's more helpful, but it was a design-based change, really more than anything else.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Any further questions of the applicant? William?
Yeah, where's the pool equipment?
The pool equipment is, how best to describe that? It's just
Southeast? Or?
southeast of the pool. And it's noted on the plan on the right-hand side, on the site plan,
Towards the neighbors then?
towards the neighbor's house, pool equipment pad.
Pool equipment pad. And what are you going to do to mitigate the noise?
It is screened with planting right now. It does not have a structure around it. The reason we haven't proposed a structure, and we'd be happy to consider that, is that we felt that screening the structure was actually going to be, or the fencing would be harder than screening the equipment itself. If you'd like to suggest an actual screen as was proposed in the earlier item on the agenda, we'd certainly consider that.
What the town requires is that the applicant prove the equipment complies with the town's noise ordinance, and that's measured at the property line.
Right.
So it's either really quiet equipment, it's buried, or it has to be insulated with some sound attenuation measures. You could certainly add a condition requiring that it be screened by a low wall with sound attenuation measures if you'd like.
That it be tested and meet the town's.
Correct.
Noise ordinance.
Right. And we do that routinely, but you could add that as a condition.
Thank you.
And we're very happy to comply with all that.
Did you talk to the neighbor down in the sort of big house right down the hill at all about this change in design? Because the persons I talked to at the site didn't know.
I don't believe that we have. Jane, has there been any contact with the neighbors? Has there been any interest from the neighbors? Yeah, I don't know that we have, and frankly, I don't believe that they've shown interest unless they have through you.
No.
About the house generally.
It seemed like they were the most impacted.
Yeah.
We did mail notice to all property owners within 500 feet, and I did
Yeah.
not hear comments from them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any further questions? They have,
Yes.
Mary Beth? go ahead.
When the pool was up higher, the drainage from the higher level going down would have been less, I would assume. And now that the pool is on the bottom, the drainage may become an issue.
Guess you'll never have to fill the pool, you mean?
Refill it.
There isn't a lower level for it to drain, for,
To actually drain the pool.
no, not to drain the pool, for when we
Site
get our
roads.
Pineapple Express, that,
Stormwater
Right,
retention.
okay.
yeah. And so now that we've moved the pool lower, you have less space to put in, retention ponds or retention, what are they called, the dry wells and like that. So,
Yeah, okay, so Scott can address that. I think he'd be better.
Okay.
better to-
So, this is tag team here. I'm Scott Lewis, the landscape architect. We've also been working with the civil engineers, Lee and Braze. So, in the first go-around, when the pool was up there, they're looking at the overall historic flow for everything. And so all the stormwater is going into a retention basin that then goes into that sort of open culvert that then goes down to the creek. So it's all been sized for a volume. So the pool is essentially just like another surface that's moving around. So the calcs are done, and the fact that the pool got a little bigger, that's not a hard surface. So it's they just will resize the basin accordingly, because that is down. The retention basin, which is on the civil engineer's plans, is down below the house. Essentially, it's a big long tube in the ground.
And does it drain down then to the road, to the creek?
Yes, but there's a choke. It's basically a choke point, so that it will never increase the the outbound water that eventually goes down to the creek will never be higher than what was there originally.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Any further questions? Paul, anybody else desire to be heard on this item? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back here to the commission. Eric, comment?
I'm still not overwhelmed with the plan, and I understand why staff made the recommendation, but it is difficult for me to understand why the layout of the whole property couldn't have been done differently in advance. I'm not, unless I hear something from the rest of the commissioners, I'm not inclined to approve and be really glad this is not, that we don't have any design criteria, because on the design, and other boards I've been on, that would have been a bigger factor, but I'm just not interested in approving an exception in this case.
Well, okay. William?
I visited the site. There was some question of your supervisor as to where the pool was going. We finally concurred that it was where it is on the plan. You should inform him that it is where it is, because he might build it up the hill. I have some concerns, but overall, I think it's a mixed bag solution. Not the best of all possible worlds, but given the effort and the the owner's desires, I would approve it.
Paul?
I would almost ditto William's comments because I was up at the site and ran into the same difficulty talking to the workers about where the pool is going to be, but had the plans with me. I do think that there's a geographical hardship here that is worth considering. So I'd be probably in favor of approving.
Mary Beth?
I don't have any reason not to approve it. I think it's kind of, that maybe the owners might find themselves kind of naked with all these properties that kind of look over it, but, other than that, but that's not my concern.
I visited the site on Tuesday, and it's a difficult site. Heard about the sandstone dome at the top of the property, and it looks like this is the only feasible place for a pool to be placed, and so I would approve the request. So is there a motion, please?
Yes.
I'll move that the planning commission approve the special structure permit for the location of the accessory structure at 30 Bellbrook Way, subject to the conditions in the special structure permit certificate and based on the findings and for the reasons incorporated in the staff report.
Semicolon, under the conditions that the noise abatement
Right.
for the pool equipment is respect to the town's ordinances, or something to that effect.
That's a major consideration.
Is there a second to the amended motion?
He motioned.
I'll second.
Okay, Mary Beth, second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
No.
4-1. Motion is approved. If someone disagrees with our decision this evening, you may appeal to the council within 10 days. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is 53 Atherton Avenue. Staff report, please.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a special structure permit to allow a basement under the accessory building. The accessory building is proposed with 767 square foot garage and a 924 square foot gym with a full basement below at approximately 1,600 square feet. The basement below is accessed from an interior staircase and is proposed for storage only. As the basement is for storage and not habitable space, no light well is proposed or required. The town arborist did conduct a site inspection and notes that the basement will not interfere with any heritage trees. Be happy to try to answer any of your questions.
Any questions of staff, anyone? None? If not, we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here would like to be heard? Come forward, please.
Hi, good evening. I'm Matthew Mosey from Dummick & Mosey Architects, the architect for the project, and thank you for your consideration of our application this evening. I think we have a fairly straightforward proposal. It's a full basement, again, below the accessory building that meets both, I think, the intent and individual requirements for section 17.430B. It's fully within the footprint above. Again, there's no light wells, no projections beyond the footprint, and again, as was indicated, there's no impact to adjacent trees or heritage trees. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions of the applicant? Anyone? No? Anyone else that desire to be heard on this matter? Thank you. If not, we'll close the public hearing. Going along pretty good. Comments by commission. Paul, we'll start with you tonight.
No comments on this one.
Mary Beth?
No, I don't have any comments.
Went to the site, it was flat and ready to go, so it doesn't look like there's any issues to me.
Visited the site, this is kind of, why is it in front of me?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Is there a motion, please?
I move that the planning commission approve the special structure permit, 53 Atherton Avenue, based on the findings and for the reasons enumerated in the staff report and subject to the conditions listed in the draft special structure permit to allow the basement under the accessory building, and get on with the celebration on this too.
I'll second that. Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0, it's approved. If you disagree with their decision this evening, you can appeal to the council within 10 days. Next item on our agenda is 95 Faxon Road. Staff report, please.
Thank you. The applicant is proposing to construct a new main residence with a basement as well as a detached guest house with a partial basement. The applicant's requesting a special structure permit for a basement under the main dwelling. And the reason for that is they had a change in the design in the front entry. So previously the front entry was more in line with the basement level, and then they decided to pull that back and have a nice round kind of formal loggia entry is what they're calling it. So that resulted in the portion of the basement below being outside that footprint. That portion is about 109 square feet. It is under the front entry steps, but technically outside of the footprint of the first floor. Second floor also overhangs the ground. So that's the first item. Oh, and I do want to note that the basement is less than, they're allowed by code. It's about 5,000 square feet in area, and the first floor above is a little over 8,000 square feet in area, and it does include a second dwelling unit.
Little tiny basement.
Well, wouldn't say it's small, but yes, it doesn't max it out. Then the second item is the basement under the accessory structure, and they're requesting a special structure permit for that. The accessory building is approximately 1,600 square feet in area, and the basement below would just be under one wing of one of those guest rooms, and that's a smaller basement, about 375 square feet in area, and that would be used for storage and mechanical equipment only, no habitable space, so again, no need for a light well. It would be accessed by a small staircase to the rear. Sally did, the town arborist conducted a site inspection, reviewed the plans for both structures, and notes that the basement for the main building and the accessory building would not interfere with heritage trees. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff, anyone?
No, none.
None. Okay, if there are no questions of staff, we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Step forward and make a comment.
You
Actually, I
have a
win.
short straw, so go ahead.
That's right. Good evening, my name is David Raymer, David Raymer Architecture. We come before you tonight for special permits for both our front entry, which is a rotunda / loggia, where the portion of the first floor actually goes beyond or goes within or beyond the basement below, which requires a special permit. The pool house is the second request that we have of you, and we were putting a partial basement under our pool house so that we can accommodate the pool equipment and the radiant heating system for the pool house, since it's quite a ways from the main residence. So those are the two items. There are no heritage trees that are impacted whatsoever. It's a relatively flat site, and we've kept the basement very compact so that, again, not being used for occupants.
Any questions?
Yes.
Excuse me, generally pool equipment has some sort of exhaust.
Yes.
And-
We have a combustion air, and we'll have the ability to pull that out.
And the noise suppression from the exhaust?
The noise, that's one of the reasons it's being placed in the basement. A couple of reasons. One is that we do want to try to minimize the amount of enclosures that we have on the property, but we also want to place the equipment there to minimize the amount of noise to the residents as well as the neighbors. We do have a acoustical engineer that will be assisting us to make certain that we meet the town ordinance for noise, for that and for our generator.
Any further questions, anyone? Eric?
No, good, that's all I need.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else desire to be heard on Paxton Road? If not, we'll close the public hearing and bring the comments back to the commission. Mary Beth, we'll start with you this time.
I visited the property, I think it's a fairly, an acceptable condition for the
Are we doing
permits.
both at the same time?
There's two different
There's two
motions.
Yeah, there's-
motions.
Yeah.
We doing both at the
Two
same time?
Yeah,
motions.
well,
Yeah.
we can take
One at a
two
time.
motions. I
Yeah,
think.
but I don't have any problem with either.
Okay. Paul?
No comments.
Oh, yeah.
It's one gorgeous site, that is one
Yeah.
big lovely house.
Yeah,
That is a huge house.
yeah.
That's
Bless
a lovely
you
site.
for maintenance, I know that problem. I have no problems, it's a gorgeous site, they seem to know the rules and stay with it.
Same here. It's a very nice site.
I visited the site on Tuesday and found the site to be delightful, as everyone else has, and am in agreement with the two motions. So we have a motion for the main house basement, please.
I move that the planning commission approves special structures permit, 95 Faxon Road, based on the findings and for the reasons enumerated in staff report, subject to the conditions listed in the draft special report to allow a basement outside of the footprint of the first floor. I move that the planning commission approve the special structure at 95, permit at 95 Faxon Road.
You're doing both,
Why not? Nobody's disagreed.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
Okay.
Get them done.
Further,
I move that the
Further move.
planning commission
There you go.
approve the special structure permit at 95 Faxon Road based on the findings and for the reason enumerated subject conditions listed in draft special structure permit to allow basement under an accessory structure. I think I'd like that same clause in there about because we've been assured by the architect to meet the noise mitigations as directed in the code. No problem.
Does that need a second and a third, or just a
You need a
second?
second.
I'll second. I'll do a
Two
second.
times. Say it
I'll
again.
second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Second.
That these be approved. All in favor say aye.
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 They've been moved and seconded and approved, and if you disagree with this decision, you have 10 days to appeal to the council. Okay, that takes care of that one. Now, are we actually, Lisa, having a public hearing on housing element?
that's correct. Yes.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the housing element.
Just like a public, like study session on the public.
It's a formal public hearing.
Yeah.
Don't be
Yeah.
embarrassed.
But we can do the
Don't
same
be
thing.
embarrassed, just.
We'll have staff report first.
Okay.
Staff report on the housing element, please.
So the item before you is considering recommending the city council adopt the housing element. So if you're in agreement with the document, this would be your final review of that document, sending it up to city council. Just to give you a very brief background, we did come before you with kind of a study session format to talk about what needs to go in the housing element. We brought that draft housing element to you for review and comment. Then the city council reviewed it, sent it up to state Housing and Community, HCD, for their review and comment. Josh and I had a conference call with them where they gave us their comments, and now those comments have been incorporated. So if you're in agreement, this would be your final review and recommendation to city council for adoption. So I'll introduce Josh Abrams, who can give a very brief overview and respond to any of your questions.
Thank you. So basically, it was very good news. We had a very successful planning process or review process with HCD. Most of the changes they had, I think they're listed in the staff report, just had to do with clarification. There were just a handful of them that had any substance to them, and mostly it was the month of the survey about second units. They asked for a new policy about working with the Golden Gate Regional Center to publicize their work for people with developmental disabilities. It's a very modest, minor change, and then also to make sure we complied with all workforce housing laws. So we'll review and make sure Atherton's compliant with that. Other than that, it was just making sure, just dotting I's, crossing T's, making sure we had everything. And just as a reminder, it's a really minor update. It's very similar to the last housing element. The one new policy we added was to, over the next couple of years, to do a planning process to talk about how to meet the needs for aging baby boomers or for seniors in Atherton. So look for that to come back, and look for that probably to be a broader community conversation about what works for the community.
Am I one of those?
Oh, yeah. Anyone who chooses to self-identify.
Any comments by Commissioner?
Let me tell you, when
I'd
you
like to
sell
make,
a house here, you don't get to stay here.
Right.
The government takes 37.5%, just like that.
I'd like to make my comment to you, and congratulations on your diligent work to
Well
get this
done.
done for us.
Thank you.
Major help,
Great.
along with,
Agreed.
Well said, sir.
along with Lisa
And Neil.
and Neil. Excellent work, excellent work.
I had a couple of things I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to bring up. On page 18, you tell the state that the second dwelling units are generally made available to family members and domestic employees. Why would we tell them that? Why would we just, to me, I'd rather, not tell them that.
Right, I know, I understand. The context is they challenged our affordability assumptions and said, we think second units, houses are so expensive in Atherton, we think a second unit would rent for a lot. So we said, well, no, because a lot of them they're just made available for free or for low cost. And they said, well, you have to put that in the housing element.
Okay. Then the other comment I had was, I was a little confused about this page 47 thing that says specifying 2020 as a time frame for implementation of new construction of affordable units program. And it's really not 47, I think it's 46. But I looked over it a couple of different times. And it says we're going to continue to maintain contact with agencies and developers of affordable housing. And then we say we're going to implement this in 2020, and that's only 5 years away. And I'm not really sure that this is something that we should sign up to do.
So I understand the concern. The context, I think the only thing they asked us to change was the date. The actual policy itself was in the housing element, I would have to look, but I assume in the previous housing element too. I think the staff report mentioned that their concern was if we're relying on the school sites in order to meet the housing needs, they wanted to make sure that actually happened. And so they wanted us to review that and see if the schools were actually producing units a couple of years before the end of the planning period. But they didn't change the policy. They asked us to change the time frame.
To change the time frame.
To change the time frame. That was the only part they commented on.
Well, I guess specifically what we need to do under C is continue to maintain contacts with agencies.
Right.
So, 2020 it isn't long term.
Depending on how you look at it.
I don't know what you're meaning by that, Bill. However,
There are those of us who hope we make it.
people who write long-term plans don't generally target their plan for the next 5 years. So, wouldn't you agree?
That would be a medium term, right?
Yeah,
Right.
that would be near term. Long term would be 20 years or even longer.
Yeah, the timeline for this document is a shorter term. It's
Short.
between 2014 and 2022.
I'm looking on page 46. Time frame for implementation, 2020, and then it's called a long-term action.
Right.
So, what I'm suggesting is that maybe instead of 2020, it ought to be 2040.
Well, the plan only covers up to 2022. So that's our plan timeline
That's it.
They don't give you the
for
option.
this document. So we can't propose something into the future beyond that plan period.
Well, we could call it 2022.
Yes.
We
Did
could.
they have concern about
Yeah,
the
this,
timeline, Josh?
basically the state just wanted us to, maybe what we can say, I mean, also I think it also says, if we're looking at the same one, 2020 we're ongoing, because I think really the heart of that is a ongoing maintained communication, but they just want, the town does an annual report about what they've done, and they just want in the 2020 report to say, how it's going.
And it's really kind of the backup plan if the school housing
Okay.
doesn't. Oh.
I'm sorry.
Okay, have a nice evening. If the school housing, doesn't come to fruition, then we have some contacts and we can start talking to those affordable housing providers and say, well, what are some other options?
Well, there's an outcome of units that are supposed to come out. I mean, it says proposed measurable outcome, units counted above. I mean,
And that includes the house.
So where are you going with this, Mary Beth? That's
well,
what
I don't think that this is gonna produce units in 2020.
So,
And so I'm concerned about suggesting, signing up for making units happen by 2020.
and it doesn't happen, or may happen.
Well, the other choice here is to come up with a specific plan now that will make it happen by then, because
Correct.
we're required to meet this requirement. So we have this design box that we're in, which says, okay, you have to meet this
These
requirement.
numbers, that's right.
Right, and so.
And this is
what
how
you-
we're doing it.
That's how you're doing it. So it's not a situation where we're gonna opt out of this. So it's a matter of how punitive it is to be, opt into it. So at this point, the way I think this is working is that they like what we've given them, and basically we passed the audit. And when I've been in audits, the next thing you do is don't ask the next question and don't edit too much, because then the auditing gets out of your control. And so what'll happen is, as we get to 2020, and they'll be coming to say, so what are you doing? Then at that time we'll be saying, well, we did the count of the schools, and we're within 5 or 10, and they're saying, and then we'll also be saying, well, we also found these other secondary units where helpers are living on the property, so there's another 3, and so then we'll piece that together. And they'll say, okay, that's good enough for now, but you're still nowhere near any other city in the vicinity, and that will always be in that loop. That's the nature of our design structure of this community. So as more and more pressure comes down to higher and higher density around to accommodate less commuting and more proximity to work and fewer traffic things, and whatever happens on the train or not, all these things are going to put more and more pressure on us to do more density. And so the only thing we have right now is a plan that's acceptable to them, that we can execute, and that we can give them an update. And so just like an affirmative action plan where you say, okay, what's your plan and what are you doing? And then you come back and say, how did you do? We missed some things here, we gained some things there. It's the same type of plan that this is. And so I'm comfortable with this for two levels. One, because it's been accepted by them, which means we can pass the audit. And 2, because I believe it doesn't leave us so far out. So if we were to say, we will have 500 units in plan, or 700 units on plan by 2020 or 2022.
They'll be happy to take that.
Yeah, they love it, and then we'd be stuck with trying to deliver on it.
Right.
This is about as low as we're ever going to get on this plan in this area for this density, and it's holding on to this density for a little longer. And then what happens at that point gets to be
It's 7 years
yes,
of life
yes,
right now.
that's
Better
right.
take it, quick.
Yeah, and then it goes down to what happens in terms of we got a lot of 8,500 square foot houses.
And 5,000 square foot
Yeah.
basins.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. So I'm comfortable with it from all those rationales. This type of thing works against the framework of the structure of the architecture of this community. And we just happen to be in a place where there's pushing to destroy that, or I won't say destroy, I will say to modify that architecture.
One of the things I think that really got us going this year on this one is the fact that we had an approved housing element for the last 4 years. And basically, it's because we gave a little bit on the second dwelling unit
Sure.
and changed some of our setbacks and a few other things, which I think really helped the state think we're really, Athen's really trying to do something. So we have that, and we better keep it going as long as we can and get going with this thing. My suggestion would be that we pass this immediately this evening. We haven't opened the public hearing yet, but we should do that. Pass it and send it to the council with the request to the council that they move quickly, even to a special meeting, to get this thing back to the state pronto. Don't waste time on this one, let's get it going. So, with that, I suppose I should open the public hearing. Anyone in the audience desire to be heard on the housing element, since the public hearing is now open? The public hearing is now closed.
Well, you ran a heck of a public hearing, that was good.
Yeah.
Okay, further comments by commissioners, since we're there.
Now, Phil, I agree with you, and Eric, I agree with you. I think the sooner we get this put to bed, the better. We're not really in the catbird seat here, and like you said, Eric, the first thing to consider is that they have something that they're comfortable with, and I think we should just run with it.
Absolutely get it to them. Mary Beth?
Okay, I'm good with it.
Eric?
You know, there's one thing where you corrected this $34 million per acre issue. I would like to be returned back to that. I was really happy with that first draft.
Excellent work. Okay, is there a motion then?
I move,
Go ahead, Eric.
oh, you sure?
Yeah.
You go.
Oh.
Okay, you got it? All right. I
Doesn't
move the
matter.
planning commission recommends city council adopt a final housing element update with the additions and changes requested by the California Department of Housing and Community Development.
I will second.
All seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
4-0. William Brindley left at.
Thank you.
Nice job. That was a nice job.
Wonderful.
Staying on the
Excellent
case.
job.
That's
Done.
really interesting reading too.
Yes, it is. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing regarding the special events ordinance.
So we talked about this item at your last meeting,
Right.
and you continued it for further discussion, but I didn't really get direction on, you know, if you need me to do some research, get some more information, so, at this point, I'm just opening it up to, you know, what additional information do you need, or what topics would you like to discuss? I was hoping to get Lieutenant Wade to come to the meeting, and unfortunately I had a conflict, so I thought that would be a great opportunity to hear, you know, from somebody that's implementing this ordinance and out there
Yeah.
enforcing it, you know, what are the concerns?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so, I could probably get him to the next meeting, we just had a conflict at this one. But if you had any specific questions or anything you wanted more information on, I'd be happy to work on that and bring it back to you.
I think my major question was, what are the concerns and what are we addressing? You know, essentially to kind of have that cleared up and what needs to be amended so we take care of any of those concerns. I'm kind of unclear on that.
I think one of the big concerns is noise.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that the revision extends the hours of outdoor functions until 8 p.m. from 7
Mhm.
p.m. And I want the town to recognize, all the people who work for the town need to understand that noise is a big issue in Atherton. We have the train, we have the planes overhead, and we have the problems from Carton Field. We cannot extend to 8 p.m. It needs to stay at 7. I think that if we extend it in any way, that we're gonna have a lot of problems with residents who are very unhappy. And you know, I would be in favor for tightening the guidelines and making the the outdoor functions have less time. It is a big issue, and I don't want to see it ever, like, kind of just slipped in there. Lots of things were called out, but not the noise change. So I was really surprised to see that. The other thing that I wanted to mention was this open house tours for the purpose of selling properties. That doesn't belong in our municipal code. I mean, I can't believe that we got that in there. It should be deleted.
It's exempted.
It's exempted, right. If open house tours meet the criteria for requiring a permit, then they need to get a permit. They should not be exempted. That's a commercial activity. Why would we exempt them? We have no commercial activity that we really want. I mean, this is real
If you're
estate.
selling your house, you have to get a special events permit?
If it meets the criteria for the noise and the time and all like that, I think, I'm not saying that, an open house where people come by, in their cars and stuff like that, I'm not suggesting that, but there are buses that come through neighborhoods with a crowd of people who are looking at individual homes, and that may need some regulation. I don't want to exempt them.
Yes, house and garden tour, like, the fundraisers where they do
But that's
tour,
included.
that's included, right, it's the open house that's exempted, right? And that's specifically for the purpose of selling is how it's different.
But there are also busloads of people who are going to open houses and,
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
well, I live in Atherton and I see them. You know, at some of the big houses, they have, you know, the realtors are bringing in groups of people from like particularly from Asia, and you know, it's like a tour, and they, you know, they have a busload of people and they go through all the open houses, and they may need, you know, that may be something that needs to be regulated, and I don't wanna have it exempted.
One of the things that I would like to know is how big a problem is this? So is it only when the president comes to town, or is it every month we have, you know, 5 complaints? So I wanna know the scale of the problem and how big a deal it is to address. So, you know, my thing is, I have for every year for a couple of years, for maybe 5 years, I had a party at my house after the car show in Palo Alto, and 17 cars come over to our house and be parked in the driveway. It holds 22 cars, so it was plenty of space, and we'd have a party, and it would go beyond 8 o'clock. All right, so did I need permit for that?
No.
So,
You're not a school.
Yeah.
It's a school, this is the school event.
I know, but I mean, but a political party needs a permit. So what I'm trying to figure out is what problem are we really trying to solve? If it's a real problem, and there's multiple incidents, and there's multiple examples of this being a real problem, then let's find out what it is and address it. If it's based on certain key areas, like there's an intersection that always has the same problem because it's always around this location or that location, then let's talk about that too. Because I think a bigger problem than noise for me is the parking. All right, so if you have 55 people coming to your house, and for whatever it is, wedding or anything else, that it becomes a 1-lane street all the way up and down. That happens all the time here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but also I think we ought to be very clear on what we're asking for, because we want it also to have it be a place where people get to use their homes.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I want to balance the regulation thing with good neighbor thing. Good neighbors make sure they don't get in the way of their neighbors. Regulations make it so that everybody has to step around to make sure they're doing the right thing they would do if they were good neighbors. So my inclination is don't have a regulation if you can get a community to help itself. And if we've got a situation we need to address, then let's address it. But I'm not seeing the data that says 65 times during this year we've had a complaint about sound after 7 o'clock.
My personal view is that this came because the city wanted to somehow find a way to recoup costs from presidential and other congressional visits to town, which cost us a bunch of money to have our police and public works set up barricades and the like. And if that's the case, I think maybe the city manager ought to come and tell us what the problems are. I mean, we ought to ask him to do just that, because I think we're trying to kill a gnat with a sledgehammer here. So let's not do that. Furthermore, there's one more thing in this. It says something about lighting on fields shall be shielded and downlit. Our codes say no field lighting. So why are we even putting that in there? That opens that, to me, that opens the door to field lighting of any kind. Okay, we should open the public hearing.
Yeah, I guess so.
Without further ado, I'll open the public hearing on the special events ordinance. Anyone in the audience desire to be heard on that? There being none, we'll close the public hearing. All right, now we go.
No, and back to the lighting that you brought up, so are you saying that it should just read lighting associated with outdoor functions? Or just strike that whole thing
Strike the whole
completely?
thing, because it's good the way it is. It says, right now, we say no field lighting,
Mm-hmm.
and that's holding so far.
Mm-hmm.
But we have, the words also shielded and downlit come from the accessory structure lighting,
Right.
where it comes from.
Well, I agree. I think we need to have a little more concrete information, as I mentioned, with concerns like you mentioned, Eric, and Phil, you're talking about a sledgehammer and a net, and I agree with that too. just as far as what exactly we're addressing and if there is anything at all we need to address. And if it does largely stem from some presidential visits, I didn't see anything in here that really directly addressed that was worthy of change. So if we can get more information on that as well.
Okay. Is that enough for you, Lisa?
Sure. Well, it's there, no, it's not it's there now. Any lighting assisting, it's there now. I just changed the word down to 2 words.
A further comment on the hours. The hours, Mary Beth, at the moment, on the play fields are relatively quiet because for some reason, the various people who use the fields either aren't making a lot of noise after 7 or 7:30, or the neighbors have gotten so accustomed to whatever noise is there, they're not complaining anymore. Because that, the problem that we saw 8 years ago, I think, with Pop Warner has gone away.
At MA High School.
There was a big issue over at MA, or not
Cart-
MA, Menlo
Carson.
College this
Oh, there
last
still is
year.
an issue on that one,
Yeah.
because of their request to move the decibel level to 75 from 60 events. They never did meet the use permit anyway.
You saw the Menlo College has dropped their football program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they also had in violation of the conditional use permit, they had a game on Sunday. They're not supposed to have any activities on Sunday. So we're working to make sure they're better informed.
Better informed, that's a nice framing.
That's interesting, because didn't the city attorney write a nasty letter saying he's supposed to,
Yes.
so now what happens?
We're working through it.
Yeah.
Okay,
The process
Next
is in
step.
motion. Next step. There are steps and it's very clearly laid out and we're on it.
okay, any further comments?
Can you vote to continue to your next meeting?
Is there a motion to continue the special events ordinance to the next meeting?
I move that we continue the special events ordinance to the next planning commission meeting.
Is there a second? I'll say. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
No.
No.
Well, you're people arbitrary here.
No, I'm not. I think it's a waste of time, but, you know, that's 3 times during the whole thing of the whole thing, I almost came down here and paid the $5,000 myself. All right.
3-1, continued. All right, the next item is, discuss Atherton Municipal Code regarding basements.
So, some concern was expressed at your last meeting, and I heard some comments that you wanted to discuss it further. And so the planning commission does have the opportunity to initiate a zoning ordinance amendment by resolution. It could also be initiated by staff or directed by city council or any member of the public. So I just put this on here for discussion if you wanted to give direction to staff to research further, to bring it back at a special meeting, to bring it back at your next meeting, whatever. It was pretty open. I think there's some concerns, but I wasn't sure how you wanted to address those concerns.
Well, let me start that for a second. Again, it's a public hearing. Maybe we ought to open the public hearing in the beginning.
It's not a public hearing,
Huh?
but it's not a
It's not a public hearing?
public hearing, but it's an item on the agenda
All right.
that members of the public can speak to.
I still will start it.
Technical.
We've been looking at a lot of these basement and special structures permits, and I've been thinking a lot about it too, and saying, why do we do this? Because the ordinances allow 130%, and they allow basements under accessory structures and so forth, and so why don't we just let them go through? On the other hand, we may be, because we're the ones that see them, last month we had 7, maybe because it's some extra work for us, maybe we're the only ones that are complaining about it, and maybe we ought to just leave the damn thing alone. End of story.
Right.
Phil, I would suggest that maybe we consider some trade-offs. For instance, allow staff to issue the permits but tighten the numbers.
Mhm.
For instance, we allow 130% of the house footprint to be a basement. So what if we tighten that down to 100%? or something in between, as well as the percentage of the basement that's under the house. If we increase that percent, then maybe we just could, by tightening those requirements up, that we would have confidence that staff could issue a category of permits, and then it wouldn't be as time consuming for our residents as well as us.
Yeah, I like that. It's a revenue hit on that, though, right now, right? There's a permit associated with coming here, right?
There's
Oh,
an
yeah.
additional fee,
Big time. Right.
and there's
Yeah.
the timeline
Right.
associated with coming. And I think a few of the projects you saw, they made some kind of minor design revisions to the plan that caused things to be put on hold a bit so they could come forward to you. And I know in this community, we have very high-level architects, and their design is, it's very important that everything follow a certain structure. And so where I think some communities, they may not make that kind of change, here it's worth it to them to maintain that design integrity. But yes, it's additional time, additional expense. And I think you've had some time to, to study this and to see
Right.
how it's been implemented, and I think that's been a great exercise, because what happened, and Phil knows this well, is there was one project that really over-excavated, and it was a huge overcut, large basement, and so then some regulations were put in place, there was some compromise with builders, and this is what was ended up with. But it could be further refined, certainly, since you've had some time to study it.
But you're right, that's what started it. That was the home that was on the corner of Eastgate and Almondrell, I think, where they tried to fit the whole basement into the lot. But you really did, you tried to put the whole basement into the lot.
Yeah.
So that started a whole series of meetings with a lot of people
Yes.
who got very heated about the number of square footage in basements and so forth. And it wasn't just the planning commission that made the change. It was pretty much community-wide. And so I'm a little reluctant for us to just haul off and make a change on our own to square footage when there was such community input a number of years ago. That was probably 8 years ago.
Yeah, and I can certainly, with your direction, I can certainly take it to the building roundtable group that we have in place. We have some developers like PPG who does a lot of projects in town, and I really haven't seen, I don't think I've seen a project, maybe one, that tried to max out that 130%. I mean, most of them are staying well within, the allowed square footage.
Now that little dog is just sleeping over there just fine. You're gonna go give him a
Right.
kick.
Right.
Well, but there's the trade-off. We reduce it a bit, yet it could be a staff level approval. I think, time and money are pretty important and certainty. Certainty in the process is very important as well.
Not knowing the history of the special structures permit, what's the origin of the 130% or the idea behind the 130%?
It's kind of a compromise that was brought up, by the builders and discussed at the city council meeting, and the thought was if you have a big U-shaped house and you want to square it off, what's kind of a reasonable square footage that could be in there?
Okay.
It was more.
It was,
I'm sorry?
It was more.
I know that. And I know the genesis of why this is on the agenda tonight and what we discussed last time. And having, like you said, the time to kind of look it over, I found myself, thinking I wouldn't know what to change or what needs to be changed, or if anything really does need to be changed. I understand how it was brought up last month, but now looking at it closer, it seems more evident to me that you just need to take these things on a case-by-case basis.
That's where I am.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the fact that we do it now. The thing about that I always look at is what percentage of these do we modify when they get here? And so far, we've been mostly.
Tweaked a few with the light wells, I think, yeah.
We've tweaked the light wells as one of the areas. But in terms of the, recently, like the last two meetings, we've been just like straight through, right? Yeah, so I think that might be I like the idea of maybe looking at some of the things like underneath the patio, or underneath the entry area as a type of thing. So there could be one or two things we might want to think about of just specifically adding, like, I don't want it to make it so that all of a sudden the entry area becomes like between here and the driveway. So we have to sort of then get the interpretation of what is an entry area. But I like the idea of trying to come up with a little bit more simple way to do it, but not modifying it so radically that we get into a do loop. But if there's one or two things, so there's a pattern of things that you've seen in the the last 20 that's been done, and 15 of them are this one type thing, or 9?
Well, I guess I would say, a basement under an accessory building with no light well, if it's only non-habitable space, I think that's pretty routine.
Yeah,
and,
that's a good idea, that's a good
you
one.
know, as long as there's no impact to heritage trees, I think
Right.
that could be handled more at the staff level,
Mhm.
if anything.
Yeah,
Well, you deal with it all the time. Why don't you come up with a couple of recommendations for us for our next meeting on this one? Simple things.
Okay, do you want me to check with the builders, or just keep it
No.
at this level for now?
The only thing that comes to mind for me
hi builders.
in reading through this was the question of whether or not there should be a limitation in the number of square feet that the basement extends beyond the footprint of the house. I don't, and again, I'm not even sure if that's necessary, but that's the only question that came to my mind.
Yeah, cause right now it's the percent, so it could be,
This has to do with squaring off.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
Okay.
We'll take your expert advice.
Absolutely.
Great. And then beat me up.
Yeah. Yeah,
Will
yeah,
that-
that's for the
Will
fun,
that
that's
do
the fun
to
part.
handle this one at the moment?
Hmm?
Will that do for this one at the moment?
I think so.
Okay, very good.
I think there's a range, I mean, you know, we could put a range of options out there and give you something to chew on.
Well, the other thing too is that I'm interested in making it easier for you, so if it just reads the sort of thrash of work that there's no
Oh,
value
that
add
was
to.
that. It's gotta be easier for us.
That too, designed for both. But
Okay.
that would be my interest, yeah.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Any further comments? If not,
I'd like to move we adjourn.
Oh, commissioners and staff reports?
commissioners reports.
Oh,
anything?
yeah, that's good.
Been nothing doing on CCAC, there's a meeting on Monday.
Right.
Monday. And that's going along in its own way. Rail committee continues to move forward. As you saw over the last couple of days, rail situation has deteriorated in some ways, with rail traffic causing some major damage in Los Angeles area and here along the peninsula, some serious deaths going on, so. Okay. that'd be-
I had one thing, I went on a business trip to Bangalore, in India, and I took my planning brain with me. And I'll tell you, if you ever want to experience what happens when you don't have a setback regulation, and you don't have a traffic, and you don't have a sidewalk ordinance, and you don't have anything, but you just have a lot of land and it's yours and build on it, it was the people were awesome and everything was amazing, but it was a real experience. I don't even know where it's ringing, but it was a real experience, and it was a real experience to see the environment there.
Right.
I mean, you'd save so much money if you didn't paint this length of the road because they're not used anyway. So there was a whole raft of things that were everything from hillside ordinance kind of things in terms of and just there's a tax there that if you don't complete your building, you're not taxed on your property and as long as it's incomplete. So what happens is there's like things in the top of buildings that are left that way so that they're officially not complete.
Right.
And so that becomes part of the architectural statement. So it's a very
It's amazing.
it was good benchmarking, let me tell you.
Okay, any further comments? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Staff reports?
Staff comments?
Staff report?
Sorry, real quick, just like to introduce some staff, have a little bit of change here. Stephanie Davis is senior planner, she's gonna be helping us out, you'll be seeing her giving some presentations. Steph's worked with me for a number of years, won't say how long.
You say more than 10, and that
Yeah,
covers
it's been quite some time. And she has a lot of experience doing our large complex home plan checks, so I've got her now sometime in the office, so we're excited about that. And Liz Reese is our new assistant planner, so we're throwing her at the counter, she's meeting with all kinds of people, and she'll also be helping make some presentations before the planning commission as well. So we have a
Welcome.
great team on board here,
Welcome.
very excited.
Welcome.
Now, assistant planner means assisting, make sure that everybody doesn't have any work except for you. Okay, good strategy.
Again, Lisa, thank you and Neil on the housing element.
Yeah,
Great work.
tremendous.
Great.
Yeah, it was really good.
We're done, hopefully.
Does that qualify for your PhD, by the way?
All right, now, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion that we adjourn.
Oh, you did that
Second.
so well.
All in favor, say aye.
Let me get this to work.
Aye.
Aye.
We adjourn.